You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening. Welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WYBC. Good to have you guys with us this evening. Of course, there was a horrible situation today in Florida at Florida State University. The shooting which took place, the gunman did end up killing two victims. They are not students. And then right now, at least as far as the information that we have so far, 5 victims are still hospitalized. We, of course, pray that that number remains 2 and 5 and that more individuals are not added to the deceased. The shooter has been apprehended and law enforcement released a statement that really articulates a few of the most important questions and answers that most people have right now. Take a listen.
And we understand that you all have been devastated because of this person's actions. The question as it relates to who is the shooter is 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner. And he's the son of a Leon County Sheriff deputy. Our deputy Eichner, has been with the Leon County Sheriff's Office for over 18 years. She has a tremendous job that she's done. Her service to this community has been exceptional. Unfortunately, her son had access to one of her weapons, and that was one of the weapons that was found at the scene. And we are continuing that investigation into how that weapon was used and what other weapons perhaps he may have had access to.
Now, I want to make this extremely and explicitly clear right off the top of the bat. The first and foremost individual who is responsible when a child, when a minor, when someone living in someone else's house commits a crime, especially with implements that are in the house of their parents, that are owned by their parents, that is first and foremost the fault of the parent. I want to make that extremely clear right off the bat. I don't care whether you're on the right. I don't care whether you're on the left. If you have a firearm, you are responsible for that firearm. If you can't handle locking up your guns, separating ammunition, and keeping them out of reach of children, you shouldn't have a firearm. And I'm not talking about legalities here as to whether legally you should not. I'm talking about the common sense of any individual. If you have someone in the house and you choose not to leave the firearm in a position where they cannot use it or access it, then you're responsible if they then go and use it. That's just how basic common sense works in this situation. And by the way, was there a sign that this individual was unstable beforehand? You guessed it, the answer is yes. This Phoenix individual was he is alive and hospitalized. He was a political science student at the university and reportedly a frequent attendee of anti-Trump, anti-oligarchy protests. So as far as the statements that I have made before, again, regardless of the conversations about political rhetoric and amplifying violence and things like that, right now what we are noticing is in fact a trend. And it is a trend that after the last couple of years, and I've been consistent with my position on this, that when you tell people that if they do not do something, they are going to die. If you say that anyone who opposes Black Lives Matter is going to kill you, if you say that anyone who opposes progressivism is going to send you back to the Handmaid's Tale, the Stone Age, and the racist years of the United States, if you tell people that Israel is secretly controlling the United States to do a genocide on everyone, then what you get are Molotov cocktails through the house of the Pennsylvania governor. You get Teslas and dealerships torched on Molotov cocktails. This isn't just defacing things, although we have examples of that as well. And when you tell people that if you do not affirm transgenderism, people will die. That's what projects like the Trevor Project, the pro-trans group, has said repeatedly. You will die. It will be like the Nazis if you do not do X, Y, and Z, if you don't stand up and fight these people. then this is the kind of stuff that we'll encourage. From mentally healthy people? No. From mentally ill and insane people? Yes. Because when people are on the edge, and right now in our country, we have very little open mental health care, institutionalism, which again, if you, back in the day, if you showed signs of extreme mental instability, then you were required by many state laws to be put in a mental institution because you were considered a threat to yourself and others. Now, instead, we affirm and endorse schizophrenia as a rational reaction. And of course, immediately the media starts ringing and going, maybe it's the gun that did it. Ah, yes, of course. Maybe it's the firearm that did it. So that was the question asked to President Trump today in the Oval Office. Check it out.
I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it. And these things are terrible. But the gun doesn't do the shooting. The people do. It's, a phrase that's used probably too often. I will tell you that it's a shame. I'm just hearing about it now. I just hear about it. I know the area very well. I know the school very well. I know everything about it. It's Florida. And we'll have more to say about it later. I'll see what happens.
Now, by the way, I want to make it also very clear, as far as in optics and as far as what I expect from a president, it is perfectly fine for a president of the United States to address a question that's given, and then to say, we're going to be saying more about this later, and to wait for just a second. Because what I'm already seeing online after every horrific incident like this is immediately everyone running to, and then they start immediately lambasting stochastic terrorism and domestic terror and all of these other claims and labels on everything. I like it when I do see someone take a moment and wait before they immediately come out and say, like we saw to them, transphobia is very wrong, lasagna. And even though, again, like in the Nashville situation, it was an individual who was a trans individual who wrote in a leaked series of documents that they were very upset at the school's Christian values and then went up and committed this crime. In this particular instance, although we don't know the end motivations yet, it is perfectly fine to say two things. Number one, the rhetoric in this country is in fact heating up due to the stoking of fears that it's now or never. And number two, that in the case of the mother, whether or not they had great years of service to the community, if you have a firearm and you leave it in a place where someone else can access it in your home, you don't put any locks on it, you don't put it in a place that only you have the combination to, you are making it accessible to your home, and it is your responsibility. Acts of vandalism and terror are indeed continuing around the country. Last night, the New York Republicans' Albany headquarters was vandalized by individuals who affixed swastikas to doors and windows. Notably, and I do want to point this out, on the door beneath the taped swastika, they said, quote, "If this is not what you stand for, prove it." Okay, so now we're in a position in the country where one side says, I feel like you're going to kill me. And if you're not, you need to prove it to me. That is the height of mental instability. That is, if you're not actually going to, take away all of my rights and delete me from existence, and you're not going to set up a fascist state, well, then you need to prove it by electing a bunch of progressive people into office. And again, we're seeing the same policies play out. We're seeing the same actions play out time and time, again and again, in which we have individuals who make really awful decisions based on group identity nonsense and expect things to go a different way. Another case in point, Karmelo Anthony, the individual who stabbed, by his own admission, a young man, Austin Metcalf, at a high school track meet, released on a bond that was 1/4 the original set price. Well, his lawyer held a press conference today, and it is one of the most despicable press conferences that I have seen. So Austin Metcalf's father, the victim's father, showed up to this press conference, which is extremely common, by the way, for the parent of a murdered child to show up to a press conference, to the court trial of the individual who committed the murder. And he was asked to leave and then told to leave by individuals at the press conference who were very angry that the victim's father showed up. We're going to talk about this over on the live stream. Radio crew will catch you in a second. FCC's got to kick you to commercial. Sorry. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right. So what about this Austin Metcalf's dad? You know, what kind of stuff has he said? Has he said, you know, that Karmelo Anthony's a really terrible, awful man and he hates him and he thinks he deserves X, Y, and Z and all this stuff? No, not at all. In fact, Austin Metcalf's dad has been one of the kindest individuals discussing his son's murder up to this point. This is what Austin Metcalf's dad said right after his son was stabbed in the heart.
It's very unfortunate that this other child decided to make a bad choice that's going to affect him for the rest of his life. I have compassion for every human being. This is not, I want to make this very clear. This is not a race issue. This is not a black and white issue. I don't want someone stepping up on a soapbox trying to politicize this. I don't appreciate some of the remarks I've seen online that people say there was this fight and they don't know. They weren't there.
Now that is an extremely kind-hearted response. Seriously. In fact, the father is going out to, in a way, defend the individual who, again, admitted that he committed the murder. So, you know, in this particular instance, in this particular instance, not exactly someone that if I was the lawyer of Karmelo Anthony, that I would then order the guy removed from the press conference and then bewilderingly lecturing the crowd about the father showing up to the press conference at all.
And all I'm going to say, so it don't be asked later, is that was disrespectful and just shows you all the character who is not invited. He knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family, but he did it.
Who murdered whom? I'm sorry. I mean, he knows better than to be near this family. Like the family of Karmelo Anthony is currently grieving over the death of Austin Metcalf. According to police on the scene, Karmelo Anthony, after he ran away from the murder and then ditched the knife after the police officer approached him, Karmelo said that, oh, well, he committed the murder, but he did it in self-defense. Oh, he had to. Eyewitnesses to the thing disagree. This is what they're now going to hammer out in court. Now, what's the legal argument here that Karmelo's lawyer trotted out? They're mad that, this is the stupidest thing I've seen, that the school did not cancel the track meet because it was raining. That's what's to blame.
I'm trying to find how many of y'all have asked the superintendent or one single board of trustee, why didn't you cancel or postpone? With weather in that magnitude, you couldn't have a track meet in rain or thunderstorm or clouds. Y'all are media. Ask your journalists, your weather journalists, how the weather was that day and that time.
I'm sorry. I've never thought, oh man, it's stormy outside. I better stab someone. Absolutely ridiculous. Insane. Oh, no one's calling the board. Why did you have a track meet in the rain? As a former track coach, we had track meets in the rain. And stupid nonsense. Oh yeah, that's what, again, the stabbing took place under a tent that they had set up on the bleachers. By the way, when I was in school, we didn't have tents on the bleachers. Whether it was the cold metal bleachers at Shenandoah Middle and High School in Middletown, or whether it was the smaller metal bleachers at Heritage Hall in Muncie, we sat in the rain. No one got up and stabbed anyone. And then said, oh, man, this is a really rough time. Man, we should really get mad that the weather rained. There were clouds. Ah, yes, that's why the murder was committed. And by the way, I can't help but notice that Metcalf's father, Mr. Metcalf, when he was told to leave, you know, like Karmelo Anthony was told to get out of his seat, you know, he didn't stab anyone on his way out. You know, just since we're comparing character here. We're going to be back in just a second to talk about the rest of how society is handling things today, because it's something special. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. The broader left is having a bit of a time. And they're having a bit of a time for a few reasons. So you'll recall that in the last couple of days, the senator from Maryland, Chris Van Hollen, has gone down to El Salvador to complain that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the illegal immigrant who came to the United States and then two separate judicial hearings found that he was, again, a member of MS-13. Then the Trump administration, who should have deported him somewhere else, not to El Salvador. That was the error. Shipped him out, shipped him off. And as a citizen of El Salvador, the guy is now in the custody of El Salvador, as the El Salvador government states, because he committed crimes there. And the left has lost their mind over it. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Additional information that came out since the last show shows that the Tennessee Highway Authority, so Tennessee Highway Patrol, found this guy in the last couple of years and said, we suspect this guy is involved in human trafficking. And then the Biden administration said, nah, let him go. Just take his picture. It's not looking good. It is not looking good at all for those mostly older guys on the left who have just made absolute clowns out of themselves over making this the main move. But the entire left is making this the main move because they're trying to pass off some type of a claim that in the United States we're turning into some type of Gestapo fascist dictatorship. And that's not happening whatsoever at all. And so what is the left going to do about it? Are they going to moderate? Because remember, Adam Wren from Politico wrote a very incredible story that got way too little coverage, in which a group of moderate Democrats met in Virginia and basically said, how can we get back to being a normal party and not bat crazy insane? And Ken, the new DNC chair from Minnesota, said that's horrible, terrible, and we're not going to moderate at all. In fact, we're going to double and triple down. And the new vice chair, David Hogg, the extremely unhinged, far to the left Gen Z activist, who has protested just about everything one can protest. He's a very big defund the police kind of guy, that David Hogg. He is now under fire in his own party because he plans to spend $20 million on primary challenges to incumbent Democrats already in office, focusing on replacing them with younger candidates who, as Hogg puts, are, quote, here to fight. So people like Chuck Schumer, other older Democrats and, representatives, the socialist young crew of the Democrat Party and the young crew of the Democratic Party is extremely progressive. The more moderates in the Democratic Party, who are more corporatist, kind of like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Elizabeth Warren, and who are kind of the more labor-centric Democrats, those are in the last of the boomer generation and then Generation X, who no one ever seems to pay attention to and no one ever gives any agency to. A lot of Generation X resides in the senior class of the Democratic Party right now. And David Hogg is trying very desperately to, again, defeat incumbents in his own party. A political party, by the way, is not actually supposed to decide what particular candidates make it to the head of the primary. It's really a risky move. You don't do a lot of ideological control in the RNC or the DNC. Your job is to get that party to win elections once the people are chosen. And to see David Hogg going all in here, starting what is essentially a civil war inside their own party. The Ruthless podcast had a really great breakdown of this today. I mean, to take this particular crew and to throw them in even more chaos as they're wandering in the desert is one of the dumbest political moves I have seen. And we just got done watching Kamala Harris' entire campaign. Or lest I remind you of the great Call Her Daddy podcast fiasco. And what's David Hogg's response to this, by the way? Quote, everyone in our party says they want to start winning again, and they do. But that simply will not be possible with our current set of leaders, too many of which are asleep at the wheel, out of touch, and ineffective. And then he tries to do some, damage control and says, the next couple of days, people are going to say some mean things about me. They're all lies. Anytime someone does preemptive PR, that's a very bad sign. But I do want to point out that David's out here proclaiming the wonders and the glory of the younger hyper-progressives when those particular hyper-progressives have been losing primaries they were incumbent to. As a quick reminder, Cori Bush is no longer in Congress. She was one of these young up-and-coming, super progressive identity politics individuals. And now they're trying to round out more. Up next, actually, we're going to be talking with Jerry Lopez for Awful Tweets, where we've got Ro Khanna, who's this super socialist dude running for New York, this part of this new class kind of sweeping up, trying to capture the far left movement of the party. It's not popular. So in summation, the Democrats are currently seeing 80-20 issues in the country. And I mean, these are really close to 80-20 issues. We're actually going to go back to the first segment slide here real quick. Harry Enton points this out. The Democrats have been spending the last week talking about how illegal immigration enforcement in this country under Trump is super unpopular. And no one likes it, and it's terrible, and it's bad, and Americans are regretting their Trump vote. Harry Enton over on CNN, again, yet another CNN polling segment, showing that actually here in the United States, Trump's illegal immigration enforcement methods are extremely popular.
Deport all undocumented immigrants. Voters favoring the government trying to deport all 11 million of them. Back in 2016, just 38% of voters wanted the government to try to deport all 11 million undocumented immigrants. Compared to where we are in 2025, 56%, the majority. The American people have come a long way on this issue, much closer to Donald Trump, and I think that's a big part of the reason why Americans are increasingly saying the country is on the right track when it.
Now, this is why this particular issue regarding the Democrats and shifting party leadership is important. It doesn't only touch the Democrats. There's this idea that inside the Beltway, inside Washington, it's been pushed for ages, that Donald Trump represents fascism and unpopular ideas, and he's going to get in there and wreck the status quo. We'll talk about that with with Josh Hammer over at the end of the show. I'm telling you guys, we are getting in a situation where the left has moved so firmly into this 20% camp, they can't even see over the wall they've fenced themselves in with. And you're seeing this on the right as well, because that same crew that was playing nice with certain Republicans has now somehow, this is incredible, somehow gotten people like Lisa Murkowski, the so-called purple Republican senator, to say, oh yeah, we're all just super duper scared and fearful of Trump and his terrible fascist regime. We're going to play that over on the live stream. Catch the radio crew back in a minute for some awful tweets. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. So out of touch, and it's just not going to get any better.
What do you have to say to people who are afraid, or who represent people who are afraid? We are all afraid. Okay. So I statement.
We're all afraid. And then she has to pat herself on the back because no one clapped for her. Because again, this is a Republican town hall that theoretically, given it's Murkowski, would be full of Republicans. And she's like, this chick was, oh, are you afraid? Like Courage the Cowardly Dog. And then Lisa goes, we are all afraid. And then no one claps because what she's saying is retarded. It doesn't make any sense at all. But, oh, I'm afraid. And then no one says anything. So she's like, that's a pretty big statement, isn't it? Because that's what voters love being talked down to, like from like a school marm who's talking to a toddler. Sorry, here's Lisa Murkowski continuing.
But we are, we're in a time and a place where...
Get out the Kamala Harris. We're at a time and a place with a significance.
I don't know. I certainly have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice, because retaliation It's real. And that's not right.
Cite your sources. What retaliation are you talking about? Because she's talking about retaliation in like the fascist government control everything kind of way. What are you talking about? I don't know. I mean, I've looked. There's what retaliation? Retaliation to what? Retaliation to Republican senators who disagree with Trump? I'll have you know that Thomas Massey from Kentucky, the libertarian, has voted against like every single bill for the last 2 years, other than some security bills. Where's the retaliation? Trump's like said, I don't like that he's doing that. That's it. That's the retaliation. Oh, what, politics? Disagreeing with people? I'm on a network in Indiana where right now every other host is like losing their marbles over the Indiana governor who didn't do what a lot of Hoosiers, including myself, wanted to on this property tax bill. I disagree that the majority of the blame currently resides on the Indiana governor. I think it resides on all of the county commissioners in every county in the state who apply property taxes at the local level. And then they turn around and go, oh, I don't know where all of that went. And I disagree with a lot of the other hosts on my home radio station. And that's fine. That's politics. You disagree. There's a little back and forth. That's how it's supposed to go. Retaliation, oh, and it's real. It's like, oh, what? Because you think that as soon as people recognize that Lisa Murkowski has no conservative policies whatsoever, and that all she's doing is just running for eternal re-election? Oh man, that Alaska, that she's trending lower and lower in her Alaska approval rating polls? Gee, I certainly wonder what the retaliation is. Maybe it's retaliation from her voters throwing her sorry rear end out of office. So there's actual constituency, and then there's like clinging desperately on to bad ideas. Right now you see the inverse kind of over on the Democratic Party. Right now the right is engaging in dialogue out in the open, and they're discussing things that work, and they're discussing things that don't work, and they're having a pretty good 1-2. And on the left, what you have is this weird shadow group of youths who are coming in and throwing people out for not rushing out and burning things down. We'll play this later on the show. Taylor Lorenz getting even more insane on Sean Hannity, not condemning any kind of violence. They're just going to pivot as hard as they can into this. And while you have the right finally coming to the conclusion that, yeah, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have like illegal aliens running around as members of gangs, given full court jury trials and pretending that's what due process means. All right, we're going to be back on some of these hot takes with awful tweets. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Awful tweets, the ones that no one ever deletes. Awful tweets on the Tony Kinnett Show.
On 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. Awful Tweets is a great segment on this show because Jerry Lopez, he's at Indy Spanglish over on X. We get posts DM'd, direct message to us every week from all over this wide garbage heap on fire of an internet. And then we take these posts, these videos from every social media site, and we suffer on air. And this is my favorite user-driven segment because it causes me the most pain. Jerry, are you ready to go?
Man, look, I look forward to this every single week, and thank God for the internet because there's never a lack of awful tweets, Tony.
Well, we're starting off with a really strong, awful tweet. This one is a stinker for sure. It's from Senator Louise Lucas. You may remember her as one of the people in that TikTok video of the choose your character, and it was really cringy. Or maybe you don't because no one else really knows who Senator Lucas is. Well, she did the whole Chat GPT like action figure filter that people are using right now. And she got like some boxing gloves on, the People's Champion, legislation power-up pack included. And she captions it with, who did this? Like she's embarrassed that someone made this. So tell me, Jerry, who did this?
She did it, or somebody in her administration, because just like you just mentioned, nobody knows who the heck this lady is. Nobody's going to go out of their way to make an action figure for this bum. She did it. She's clout chasing, just plain and simple. And
again, just to make things explicitly clear, Just to line it all up and out there. Everyone knows when you make a post about yourself or when you like your own tweets or your own posts, you're like, man, who left this note out here in my handwriting? I love you. I'm so embarrassed. The cringe of it all is just painful. Well, I promised that Ro Khanna guy in New York, he had a little bit of a diatribe on the current state of super fascism in the United States. Check it out.
Advances America, police can knock on any immigrant's door, deport him to a dictatorship without due process, and then wash their hands off his fate, pretending that America is powerless to free someone outside our borders. That's what they did with Abrego. That's what they've done with Merval Gutierrez, a 19-year-old Venezuelan who may have no criminal record and was heartbroken father.
Did you notice that may have no criminal record, Jerry? What do you have to say about it?
First of all, I am the child of immigrants, okay? My mom is a naturalized citizen. My father has a green card, which means he has to go check in with ICE every single year, okay? Coming into this country illegally is a crime by itself. So let's stop saying that these people haven't committed a crime. Maybe you want to say they didn't commit a crime, but coming here illegally is a crime. Secondly, the dude that's in El Salvador is from El Salvador. We didn't deport him to some random country. That's the country that he's from. And the countries that run around and just grab people in the middle of the night, guess what kind of governments those are usually ran by, Tony? Communist and socialist governments. That's who does that.
I'm always shocked to hear such things. All right, well, we've got more. But we're going to get into the Garcia stuff a little bit because the hot takes, they're here. So this Jason Selvig guy, he makes a post because Attorney General Pam Bondi says we're going to release additional information on what we know about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And so he says thanks. He's got a screenshot, little screenshot that he's cropped here. He says Abrego Garcia, previous criminal history, and then underneath it a dotted line says subject has no criminal history. And then he kind of cuts off these two words below that says criminal affiliations. Jared, do you happen to know what he kind of cropped out?
I bet it said he's affiliated with the gang MS-13. Just a guess. Also, why are they so worried about helping criminals and criminal aliens? And these fools never even went to Appalachia to help Americans. It's very telling that they care more about criminal aliens than actual Americans.
Of course. And again, just a piece of advice out there. If you are going to say, look, I've read the whole thing and there's no proof that he's a part of MS-13, like you're going to try to cite some kind of a document or, well, that's really old and what we have is more recent. Okay. But if you're really just going to crop out the part that says one of the reasons that the dude was kicked out of the country, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if that's making the.
They deported him back to his country of origin too. Like this is all above board.
Oh boy. All right. Well, apparently some don't think it's quite above board. Chris Mowry, who looks like what's the guy from Boy Meets World? The friend, the Sean. He looks like Sean. He's got the Sean haircut. It's all right. It's just long hair, kind of weird, kind of goofball looking dude. He says. He's, period, ignoring, period, the, period, supreme, period, court, period. And then he's like, many of you have walked into this country, straight into fascism, and you're still too stupid to realize it. My generation will never forgive you.
I mean, Tony, it's scary that we share a world with these idiots. Like, I'm so tired of hearing the word fascist. At this point, the left has drawn more Nazi signs than Nazis did. Like they're burning down EVs. Who was buying the EVs? Liberals. They don't even know what they're doing anymore, Tony.
They don't. And I don't know where the moment of correction is. But as for my generation will never forgive you, I'm assuming this guy's Gen Z. Right now, the upper half of Gen Z is only +6 blue. That's pretty even. The underside, the younger half of Gen Z is +12 Republican. Which for that age range is wildly conservative. All right, moving on. Putin tells a freed Russian hostage to thank Hamas for the humanitarian act of releasing him after 500 days in captivity. What?
I mean, after 500 days, thanks for letting him out now. No, I think you should thank Donald Trump, because Donald Trump was going to turn that whole thing into Playa de America. Okay? Like, it is nuts. This world has gone crazy, and thank God for Donald Trump, because where would we be with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris?
Oh, I tell you where we'd be. We've got the Maine Attorney General to answer that question for us. He's ready to go here. By the way, this is
working through to understand.
This is the guy who, again, Maine is currently being sued by the federal government because they are resolutely saying, no, dudes belong in women's sports. Allow the guys with their wangs in women's locker rooms and on the playing field. Here's the Maine Attorney General.
What, if any, problem really exists with the participation? If some of the harms that are being alleged really are of some concern? And what we've identified is there are no concerns of safety. There are no concerns about individuals who are just choosing which gender they want to give themselves in order to participate.
You know, there's apparently no safety problems, I guess, with with dudes in women's sports. What do you think?
Listen, I have 4 daughters. I will die on this hill. And the America that I fought for as a veteran, you sure as heck got the right to identify as a male or female. That's your business. But we don't have to agree with your mental illness. Like, this is the only mental illness in the world where the prescription is society has to buy into your mental illness. There's no other world where we do this.
It's absolutely bonkers to watch. After Trump just brought an individual to his State of the Union style address who endured brain damage because a man spiked the ball into her face and caused actual permanent damage. And then for the main guy to go, we don't even see any evidence of that, is special. All right, this last one.
Think about this, Tony. It's the same side that's championing these weirdos wouldn't stand for the young black kid that's dying of cancer at the State of the Union.
That's true. I do kind of wonder when the side is going to go ahead and acknowledge that they're for getting rid of the paraplegic and the Special Olympics as well, as Piers Morgan pointed out. Because, if everything's all the same and there's no difference, then, you're going to have LeBron, you're going to have LeBron go dunk on the kid in a wheelchair. Is that okay now?
Straight up Joanna Man style. Listen, they were against the patriarchy 8 years ago, and now they're letting guys erase women.
I'm telling you, I will pay to watch the Lakers play the Chicago Sky in a heartbeat. All right, last tweet here is from Candace Owens, who, if she was literate, I would be more interested in her career. But Candace Owens has gone so far off the rails into deep, 4chan conspiracy land, and not even the good ones, just really easily debunked tweets. She says, talking to this guy, who, again, she has made the case now. She says, the Bible explicitly mentions the star of Remphan as being associated with Saturn worship, and Moloch is now somehow being deemed anti-Semitic. And then she points out the Star of David, the 6-pointed star, and says, this is in fact the star of Remphan. As it's like, oh, yeah, it's not anti-Semitic. Just point out that the Jews are all Satan worshipers is her claim.
Yeah, well, here's the crazy thing about that. You're telling me the son of Cuban immigrants knows that star has 8 points on it and not 6, first of all. Second of all, when did Candace Owens start spelling her name with 3 Ks at the beginning? She's like the female Kanye. She's completely off her rocker these days. And it's a shame because I used to be a huge fan of hers.
So I will, yes, you are correct. In fact, the Star of Remphan, as has been discovered in actual archaeological digs, explicitly labeled, is in fact an 8-point star. And not this weird, crude drawing. But also number 2, and I'll throw a little extra on here. 2nd, 3rd century Christian art that we have retained shows the cross in the middle of the Star of David, showing that Christ is the fulfillment of the prophecy of the Jews. So, and by the way, this particular post points out that 12th century rock-hewn churches in Ethiopia show, again, the Star of David, again, a long time associated with Judaism. And Candace going, oh, well, the Jews are all demon worshipers. Man, really not hiding the ball on this one, is she? Yikes.
I mean, Google's your best friend, Candace.
The struggle is real for the Owens crew. All right, Jarrett, we'll catch you later on Awful Tweets. We got to send you over to the commercial side. Take care, my dude.
Later.
All right, I do have one particular clip that has been giving me quite a bit of life from Taylor Lorenz. Not because it's a great clip, not because Taylor Lorenz is a normal person whatsoever. But if you really want to see how kind of the old side of the Democratic Party and the younger side of the Democratic Party view each other, you got to look at James Carville, who again we showed on the show yesterday, and then you got to look at Taylor Lorenz. So Taylor Lorenz, like David Hogg, is very much in favor of this. Well, the people are angry, so they can do whatever they want. So Sean Hannity over on Fox had Taylor Lorenz on, and things went very, very, very quickly off the rails. They went very, very, very quickly off the rails, and it just kept getting worse. So let's see if we can get this clip lined up, because it's special.
Okay, simple question.
There we go.
Okay, simple question. Do you condemn that? Can you take a moral stand and condemn that?
What I condemn is the violence of our system, and I would love for you to acknowledge that.
I'm not asking you to condemn the system. Taylor, do you condemn people that call for assassination?
Gosh, you're going to ask if I condemn Hamas next. This is crazy.
Will you condemn assassinations? Man, you're going to ask me to condemn Hamas next? This is crazy. How could you do that?
I'd love for you to acknowledge what I'm actually saying, Sean, and we seem to be talking past each other. I want to talk about the fact that half of all adults delay because of cost. We need to talk about that 70% of Americans, by the way, believe that the insurance company practices are responsible in part for Thompson's death.
Oh my gosh. Oh, people believe that like he brought about his own assassination. That makes it moral. Amazing. By the way, the left, the older left, Gen X, and I do want to point this out because Carville is not a boomer. He is the older half of Gen X. They're not going down without a fight. And what you are about to watch over the next 2 years is going to be a beautiful, pristine circus. Get the popcorn.
Why don't somebody sue David Hogg? He's an officer of the Democratic National Committee. He is the vice chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and he's running against other Democrats. I would like to know, and you went to law school, does he have a fiduciary duty toward Democrats? If you work for News Nation, you can't promote CNN. That's because you work for somebody else. You have a fiduciary duty to your employer, which anybody can understand. He's being paid to run against other Democrats. I think it's an outrage. I don't know if I have standing, but I might give the DNC $10 and sue him. He's a contemptible little twerp, if you ask me.
Sue his ass.
I love it. I mean, I love it. I really do. And they brought this on themselves. Whenever you expand a coalition and you give individuals power, you can't then take back the power. And by the way, the right really should pay heed to this kind of stuff as well, because when you give individuals who have a little too much of the Fruit Loops, they're on Looney Tunes, and all of a sudden you give them power in the party, and then you turn around and say, okay, now you said your crazy stuff, now that's enough. They don't stop. And by the way, one of these cases in point is, regardless of the flack I will very likely get for this, some of the comments made by RFK Jr. today. I like a lot of things about RFK. I do. There are a lot of things that I respect him for, especially given the way that he was dragged through the mud and back again. But some of the comments that he made today just looked, sounded, and were objectively horrible. And again, when you put anyone in an instance where they speak for an administration and then you let them out there, whether it's like Steve Witkoff or RFK or Peter Navarro, you get problems. So we're going to go ahead to the commercial break, come back in just a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
All right, before we head over to Josh Hammer over from Newsweek and talk a little bit about the walls that just never seem to close in on Donald Trump, we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of a weird optics situation in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So RFK Jr. today, he got in front of the country and he said a few things that were a bit questionable. And we'll talk about why, but we'll go ahead and let RFK take a couple of seconds here. Here's RFK's comments on autism.
Sir, this is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted.
Okay, we got to stop there. And here's why. By the way, looking into the causes and the antagonizings of autism is a good thing. Transparency, and again, reforming how the National Institute of Health, the National Health Services in this country work. The entire Department of Health and Human Services, of which RFK Jr. is the secretary of, that's a good thing. However, he's talking about autism, and he starts describing people who are not autistic. So the idea that autism is this completely, fully debilitating condition that ruins you for life and all this stuff. First of all, no, this one is in fact a spectrum. So autism is not an actual disease. Autism is not something in which there is like an autism gene or an autism bacteria or virus that causes autism. That's not a thing. We've looked for quite a while. And autism is, in fact, a method that the brain takes of basically altering the order of certain processes and putting certain things much higher up on the to-do list than others. And what that creates is, on kind of the lighter end, if the autism isn't very heavy, very much on the spectrum, it can be a little bit of social awkwardness. And on the high end, kind of the highest forms of autism can, in fact, be a little bit of the non-life functioning autism by oneself. And the vast majority of individuals in this country who have autism are not in what he's talking about, which is like the fully mental retardation portion of the what I would describe as like life skill students that I used to have, individuals who actually couldn't zip up their own pants, individuals that needed help with every single task. Most individuals who are autistic are not in that way, shape, or form. And the argument, well, most of them are never going to hold a job. The highest ranking official in the United States government, in the president's advisor groups, not confirmed by the Senate, is an autistic man and the most brilliant engineer of our time. And if you don't think Elon Musk is autistic, bud, I don't know what to tell you. He is, in fact, autistic. And many extremely incredible people on this earth today, actively working and writing things like poetry, are autistic. You say, well, but wait a minute. I mean, we started identifying all these cases of autism like only after the 90s. What's going on with that? I want you to tell me that some individuals out there who have the special dishes cabinet that no one's ever allowed to touch and no one's ever allowed to move a plate, or else the off balance will send them into a spiral for the end of the day. I want you to tell me that we clearly identified every individual with autism back before the early 90s. That individual who gets their hair cut every single second Tuesday morning at 9:17 p.m. or they'll be depressed for the rest of the day? Really? We have spent more time since the 90s focusing on adolescent mental psychology than ever before in human history. Said, well, we never diagnosed it before. Yeah, because in the 1930s, no one was doing advanced adolescent and youth psychology. No one was doing it. Now, am I saying that nothing can affect that? Nothing can make it worse? Of course I'm not saying that. I think it's good to ask specific questions about what causes things and about what eggs things on 100%. But, just to be clear, in this particular instance, if you're going to get out there and suggest that all or the vast majority of people with autism are non-functioning individuals who are never going to have a job, and that this is the single greatest epidemic in this country, that just isn't true. That's not true. Again, I'm sympathetic towards finding ways to aid those with autism. I'm very sympathetic towards asking questions about what we know about mental health. But going out and suggesting that autistic people are completely undesirable and that someone with autism is somehow extremely defective is just not the case throughout all of human history. There are excellent arguments to be made that one or two of the founding fathers was likely on spectrum. They had a bit of the tism, and it made them more effective. It's unnecessary. It is very unnecessary. I will make one correction real quick. I know that James Carville is like 80 years old, and he's actually more on the boomer side of things. He's not actually Gen X. When I mean that he acts more like a Gen X person than a boomer does. He's talked about that a little bit before, but another topic for another time. Radio crew, we will catch you sooner rather than later. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. All right, we're going to shift over to Josh Hammer, talk a little bit about why the walls never seem to close in on Donald Trump ever at all. It's a really great look at not only some of the polls, but also a little bit of a parsing as to what free trade means, isolationism, protectionism. It's excellent. We'll be back with that in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. Anytime we get to bring on Josh Hammer over, he's the senior editor at large at Newsweek, senior counsel over at the Article 3 Project. Dude's phenomenal. Broadcasting, legal mind, the sass that he brings to common sense issues are second to none. So we brought him on to talk about something that I'm constantly told the walls are closing in. Or whether it's tariffs, whether it is immigration policy, whether it was when he was running for president, whether it was when he was running for president again, the walls are always closing in. And then we find out they're not. Josh, thanks for joining us, man.
Tony, I really appreciate that very generous introduction. It's always great to join you, my friend.
Well, let's dig right into the good stuff, all right? You know, enough about the introductions and all of that nonsense. Let's talk about the ratings, the approval ratings, the hard numbers that are constantly not plummeting to zero like I'm told they are. I was told tariffs were going to drop things down to 2% approval for Trump, and it was going to be Black Monday, and we were all going to die.
Yeah, funny how that doesn't happen.
You know, guys, we are having we are having just a bit of an issue with that particular video clip. It seems that our encoder on the stream is just a bit fried. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the stream. We're going to end it here. Sorry, I know there were a few that were excited more on the side of bonus tonus. I regret to end the show in this particular fashion. This is a hardware issue. We're going to get this fixed. We'll make sure the Josh Hammer interview, which is an excellent one, is up tomorrow. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Again, sorry about the technical glitches there at the end. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Take care.